Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and today I have a very special guest with me. Well, not a special guest, a special goose, because Maverick and Goose are back together. What do you think about that? Brian Roach is here today, my co-host and co-pilot. What's going on, Bri?
It's a beautiful day in South Jersey, and I'm just glad to be here with you, man.
Isn't that's beautiful? I mean, it speaks to me, man. I don't know what else to tell you about that. We always have fun. We always joke around. But you know what? The Top Gun reference it's almost apropos these days. Let me tell you, folks, there's a few things. Some people say we're not critical enough of the Steelers. Personally, myself, I don't see what there is any benefit to dwell on the negative. I mean, if you lose a game or somebody plays bad, I think we criticize and we give their fair share of, hey, this guy did this bad or this can be improved. But we're dealing with like OTAs and rookie mini camps and so much speculation right now. I remember last year, Brian, you talk about people leaving the field or people panicking that James Conner got hurt or something. There was a hamstring thing, and I heard it was just a minor tweak. But I remember Marcus Wheaton leaving the field last year, and everybody's like, oh, he went to the locker room. He was walking funny. He had a limp, whatever it was. And it turned out that like he broke the laces or the cleats on his shoe. There was something it was at the end of the practice, so he didn't come back out. And there was all this speculation, oh, my God, he's hurt, and the trainers are looking at him and everything, and it's all for nothing. Right now, they are practicing, what is it, football and shorts? Is that what
football and shorts?
Oh, man. So, I don't know. How do you feel about that? But it's like when we discuss things here, I try to stay happy. Like I said, it was a very beautiful thing you said earlier. But it's like some others are trying to gun at us, and I feel like Maverick and Goose, and we're trying to dodge all the crossfire. And you know what I mean? It's just one of these things where there's no benefit to saying anything bad about these players because it's football and shorts.
Right. And on top of that, look, you know, we're at a period in the offseason where, you know, if you want to try and be critical, it's kind of difficult. What do you want to criticize? You want to criticize the draft picks themselves? Well, you had an opportunity to do that, you know, a month ago. And if you did, in all honesty, you probably weren't being realistic in looking at where they drafted, who else was available at the time, and the quality of the picks that they managed to get. And, you know, who fits. We've gone over that ad nauseum, and we weren't, you know, this is the best thing ever to happen since sliced bread. But at the same time, you think when you're drafting at 30, this isn't half bad. Now you come to now, and complaining about the way a guy plays in shorts is, I don't know, it's like it's a waste of your breath to a certain extent. Wait till they get to camp and see what's going on. Let's look at what they do seem to be providing instead of criticizing stuff that maybe isn't there. As I think it's Jim often says, just saying something nasty doesn't make you more knowledgeable.
Yeah, you know, there's a few things that are out here that are pure speculation. Everybody does this. Everybody takes guesses. Everyone wants to see. We've discussed a few things, and we're going to talk offense today, but just quickly on the defensive side, we said whether there was any benefit to Will Gay playing at safety, if there's any reason that Arthur Moat should try and experiment playing in inside linebacker again. And these are things that are just, you know, it's talk. It's water cooler talk. We're not trying to say this is what the Steelers are going to do. And even if you did know what the Steelers were going to do, they change gears so quickly. Everyone that right now is talking, you've got all this going on. Speaking of Will Gay, I think they asked him about all of this man and press coverage stuff. Oh, yeah, the secondary is going to change and they're going to play all this man stuff. And then he turns around and says, no, we're not. I mean, it's crazy. It's one of those things where I think the NFL has gotten to a point where every single thing I guess that happens, every little hiccup out there is under a microscope, and we're no better than anybody else at speculating at these things. It's like we try and have some fun and try and give a little bit of insight, and what we really the goal was, I think, when I sat down one day and I said, you know what, I'm going to start this Steel City Underground thing, and then when there were other people who put forth their resumes, like yourself, Brian, and hopped aboard with me on this little crazy train here, I really wanted to open your mind about different possibilities. Think outside the box when it comes to football. It's not so easy as this guy sucks or this coach needs fired. In most cases, it's a lot more complex. There is a business of football. There are things that go on outside of playing the actual games that affect what goes on in those actual games. And I just want everybody to kind of chew on that and think about it. And that's kind of where we're headed with today's topic.
Yeah. And just to reiterate something about the speculation, Bob Labriola 3.5 years ago suggested that Will Gay should move to safety. That's Labriola. That's not us. So this isn't a new topic. This isn't something that just popped up this year. It was suggested a while back that maybe. Now, whether we agree, whether we think that he can make that switch, some of us in the room, so to speak, think, why not? Maybe it'll extend his career. And others think, no, I don't think that's going to help. And it's the same is true with Arthur Moats. We all like Arthur Moats. We'd like to keep Arthur Moats on the team. But depth at outside linebacker is starting to get pretty thick, which is a good thing, right? So, the idea of saying, could he do it? Do we know the answer to that? No. But is it a valid question? Sure it is. Sure, it's speculation.
And he did it in Buffalo. And, in Buffalo is a dumpster fire of constantly changing coaches and ideas and schemes and everything else. So you get flip-flopped around, and a lot of people think his skill set may be better suited to maybe playing outside linebacker. It's just merely the thought of, hey, it's the same thing with Will Gay, and you had mentioned that, and we've seen him actually take practice reps at the position. It's been tested. It's not like we're saying, hey, could Big Ben play defense? I mean, it's not that far of a stretch. So, you know what I mean? It's some people get their panties in a bunch, so to speak, about things that I don't know. It's just the social media thing, and I heard not to get into all of the particulars and all of that because, like I said, there's nothing good that comes out of saying anything negative about these guys this time of the year, even to the fact of like Ladarius Green or somebody of that nature. And we're going to talk about the tight end depth chart here in a moment because some things have actually changed since I wrote the initial article. I think I had like a way too early Steelers offensive depth chart, and that's our topic today. But a lot of people, Ladarius Green, worst free agent signing. Hey, you know what? The guy has concussion problems. And when it comes to health and player safety, you're never going to hear a whole lot from me. Some people already Senquez Golson's a bust. How would you know? He's never done anything. I mean, it's like there's a guy, and you probably remember Brian because you're kind of an old man like me, a little bit older of an old man than me. But
Thanks very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Well, Penn State had this great running back by the name of Kajana Carter. I mean, he set the world on fire in college. And who was it? The Cincinnati Bengals. Top overall pick? Was he a number one? I know he was a first-round pick, pretty high pick. And the guy never got on the field. And is that necessarily any fault of the Bengals or any fault of Kajana Carter, and you want to call him a bust? I would more or less say that you want to say somebody's a bust, you got to go with guys like Jamarcus Russell that were just, lazy, didn't apply themselves, or just weren't any good. I think that's more of a fair assessment if their performance on the field was just subpar versus, hey, this guy blew out his knee and he never fully recovered from it and was a shell of his former self. I think that's the way I look at those type of things.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough example. I don't think I have much to add to that because I think it's a pretty good example.
Fair enough. So in saying all that and trying to protect myself from haters and all of the shade and the heat and the crossfire that's going to come from this episode. And we love comments. I love opinions. Let me tell you, most of the opinions, 90% of the opinions that everybody's out there when you comment, when you tweet at us, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, wherever you're at and wherever you're saying, I usually agree, or I see the glass half empty, glass half full. I'm capable of seeing it both ways. It's just my opinion. I try to take a particular side of a story here. And one of these with the offensive depth chart, and I know I'm going to get some flack from this. So here is the disclaimer. Talking about week 1, very first game, the opener for the season in Cleveland. Who's on the field, because I do feel that some of our rookies are going to have an eventual impact on this team by the time you get to December and you're playing postseason football. But we're talking early September. Will they be ready? Will they be on the field? In most cases, not. And the offensive part of this is going to be pretty cut and dry. Just talking about depth chart. I think we know. Well, Brian, what position group should we go with first? What do you think here?
Well, you brought up tight ends. I think it makes sense to start there. And let me leave it at that before I start venturing off into other groups.
Sure.
That's a group where, Ladarius leaving the room because of the failed physical, and as Terry brought up, the potential there for having recurring concussion syndrome is pretty high, considering, what happened to him and the fact that he never came out of concussion protocol last year. He never came out of it during the offseason and then failed a physical. It made sense for him to be released. I think we all hoped that wouldn't be the case, and I think the Steelers probably anticipated it not being the case, assuming he would clear in his physical. But they don't, you can't force the physical pre-time. You can't make the guy come in and take it early, I don't believe. And so when he did and he failed, all right, now they're in a position. But on the upside, you know what? Jesse James was really good last year.
He wasn't bad at all. And I've mentioned this numerous times about, if you hadn't, stop me. It might be a broken record. But JJ there, the outlaw, played outside of anybody that was a killer bee or our offensive lineman the most snaps. He was in the top 10 somewhere there, because I think a few of the linemen, like Ramon Foster missed a couple games there, and Marcus Gilbert missed a couple games. So he's somewhere in the 7th or 8th in total of offensive snaps last year, which is just mind-blowing to think he was on the field that much, which just goes to show you just how little Ladarius was really needed. And Ladarius got some time there, like in a Cowboys game, I want to say. It was that like week 11 or somewhere in there. And I'm starting to catch up here with the 2016 recalls I put on the website. We're starting to get towards the end of the season. I think I'm headed into, I'm trying to think who I was just breaking down. Oh, yeah, Buffalo, the game in the snow. And he was in that game too. And he got some snaps, and he was kind of he was a little bit of a threat there. But I had posed the question, and originally this was prior to Green getting released. And from my understanding, as far as the way physicals go, is if you have a hangnail that's just there, you could fail a physical. They don't really disclose any details of why you fail a physical, or I think it's just do you want to fail this guy or not? If you want to fail this guy, you could fail him, and he's off the books, so to speak, for the most part. There's a little bit of spare change hanging there, and he got paid quite a bit of money last year. But we knew when Ladarius Green was initially signed, it was actually a team-friendly deal, and it was pretty front-loaded for that first year. So Jesse James, not too bad. The other guy that got a contract extension here in the offseason, David Johnson, kind of a utilitarian player. He could be put anywhere. I don't know if I use that word properly, by the way, utilitarian or just utility, maybe. Maybe that's the right word I'm looking for.
I'd go with that one.
I think the other one might mean, he's like leading an army of people to take over the world or something. So I don't know that David Johnson's going to be doing that, but taking over the world as far as football standpoint, he's a guy that plays about maybe 20 to 30% of the snaps, somewhere within there. Got a little bit more than usual questionable by virtue of Roosevelt Nix not being healthy till about November of last year. So he's the guy that's like the H-back, if you're not familiar with that. Not really in the backfield a whole lot, but capable of being a fullback. He is a blocking tight end. He's going to be competing with some of these bodies that are coming up that are the undrafted rookies, and there's a few names there that are interesting. In fact, you spoke to one of them, and I spoke to the other one, Brian.
Yep. Faison Odom, who was turning some heads at rookie minicamp because he's ginormous. Very tall body, big guy, 6'8". I kind of joked with him when we did the interview that between him and Jesse, you're talking about having a Steelers version of the Twin Towers, because Jesse's 6'7" and he's 6'8", and they're the same age. Which, when you think about that, just Jesse's got 2 years of service in, and they're the same age.
That is crazy. And then, of course, I spoke with Scott Orndorff, and neither of these were podcasts in case anyone's looking back for it. They were for the site. They were written articles. We're, at the time, not permitted to use any recorded footage of them, but if we have an opportunity, we're going to try and reach out and have either of those guys back with us. But, you get the one guy that's a freak of nature. You got Orndorff, who loves to just slam into people. He can make some combat catches. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here in camp. Tight end could be a little thin, but I don't think there are multiple reasons. The wide receiver group is not thin. So if they decide to put an extra receiver out there, we haven't really seen a whole lot of anything beyond a 3-receiver set during Todd Haley's tenure here over the last, since 2012. But Bruce Arians used to throw 4 and 5 guys out there at will. We could see that return.
Yeah, I think we really could, especially after drafting Juju, because he's a big, tall, strong kid. And while I don't want to start the conversation that he needs to switch to tight end, because he doesn't. That's not appropriate. But
oh, come on, we're speculating. Let's just go for it, man. I think he could play defense too. He's going to be like high school. He's going to play both sides of the ball because he's just that talented.
Exactly. Martavis to cornerback. Shazier to safety as well. No, Juju is going to be an extra body that I think helps. And as Terry was speculating, and I don't know if the article's up yet, I know she's working on one about Sammy's hands and the fact that he might actually have a better ability to catch the ball with his broken fingers healed the way they did than if they didn't. If you throw in a grouping of Martavis, AB, Juju, and Sammy Coates, what are you going to do as a defense? Who are you covering? Then if you throw Le'Veon in the backfield and put him in motion, what are you going to do?
You got to respect that. Even if you put Sammy or Juju, and we're skipping over Eli Rogers too, and he's capable. He had a few games there too where I think he had a game that was 4 or 5 catches, 100-some yards. It was his career high last year. It's crazy. And you know what? That was a good point by Terry. Of course, Terry Fletcher, our medical guru, so to speak, over here at Steel City Underground. And she had brought up, we found out, in case you guys don't know and you don't catch all the news out of these OTAs, Sammy opted to not have surgery on his fingers. So this thing is like a Freddy Krueger hand now. The way it looks, it's like bent out of shape. He said, it was more mental. He was thinking about it too much. And it was getting in the way of him playing and making the catches and his focus and whatnot. And he said, actually, now, and it's funny, he said this after she said it, actually, because when we first found out about that, he didn't actually do like an interview or get in depth about catching the football with his mangled mitt there. But it is like a mitt now, I guess, with, and we were talking to somebody else, maybe it was Zach or someone that had messed up a finger, or they knew somebody that they had played football with that had messed messed up a finger, and they attested to much of the same, that where this a kid approached her parents or a doctor or somebody and had them break a finger intentionally because it helped them catch the ball better, which that just blows my mind. It's not something that I had ever thought of. I don't relish the thought of how hard Ben throws the ball, of having somebody intentionally break my fingers. I would think I'd break my fingers just trying to catch one of Big Ben's passes.
Exactly. That's when the more that we think about that, that's just crazy talk, isn't it? That's crazy talk. Breaking your own fingers so you can catch better is crazy talk, except if it works, then it's not crazy talk. But that's not obviously that's not what happened to Sammy. It's not like he went out of his way to break his fingers. But it makes sense because of that curvature that comes in after the way they healed, that maybe it does provide some kind of a weird, freaky extra grip. And who knows? Maybe it'll be a trend. Receivers in the NFL will all start breaking their fingers in junior year of college, sitting out a year, and then coming back and being able to catch everything with just the fingertip.
It sounds like something out of WWE and formerly WWF. They had, there was this unfair advantage that Lex Luger had when he first came in the mid-'90s. They made up this whole thing that he had a metal plate in his forearm. Whether it was real or not, they showed like an x-ray, and then he would hit somebody with this forearm in a match and knock him out, and it was this unfair advantage. So it just kind of makes me think of something like that. You want to talk about speculative things? Oh man, it's going to be fun times hearing some of these comments about, really, Sammy with his messed up hands going to be better? Because we didn't see it last year, but he says it's mental, and you know what? It wasn't quite healed yet. Now it's 100% healed, so he may be on the path to recovery. But as far as our depth chart looks for week 1, we'd already mentioned Jesse James. If we didn't put that out as the de facto default, he's going to be the starter. I think that's pretty much a given. I think it's a given with the wide receivers. If we go with the way the Steelers usually structure these depth charts, you have 2 receivers. You're going to have AB, and you're going to have Martavis Bryant. Behind them, I think you nailed it with Sammy Coates, but I do think it's Eli Rogers. I think Juju's in there on the third string, backing one of those guys up, just by virtue of experience for that first week. And then I think Justin Hunter might be the guy who makes the cut here. I didn't necessarily factor this out, the 53 guys. I kind of just filled spots on the depth chart based on how it looked last year. So,
yeah, well, it makes sense. Look, at times we ran with 4 tight ends on the roster last year. That's, you kind of assume because David Johnson can play a dual role, that maybe he's going to be one of the guys. And I think that Jesse's a lock, but then it's Xavier Grimble and the X-Man. You don't know that. I think the X-Man is on the bubble. He's the guy that guys like Orndorff and Odom are going to be battling to take that position away. And if they outperform him in camp, and again, it's way too early. It's camp. It's not if they outperform him in shorts. It's if they outperform him in training camp in August and late July. Then they've got a shot at being involved in the roster. But I think Jesse and maybe David Johnson are there for the most part. I agree with you that it's AB and Martavis without a doubt. And I also think it's Sammy right after that. And I think we either had 5 or 6 receivers last year. Mm-hmm. And partly because of depth issues. And as much as I think most of us will be unhappy if Justin Hunter does show up and has a great camp, has a great preseason, and makes this team, that is going to make it tough for guys like DHB, DeMarcus Ayers, and Kobe Hamilton. And I know that I just saw recently that both Ayers and Hamilton are still practice squad eligible. Obviously, Darius Hayward-Bay is not. So there is certainly a chance that DHB does not make it out of training camp. But it will all depend. I mean, that's speculation. I'm kind of leaning towards Justin Hunter as a nice body to have in, but unless he all of a sudden becomes much better, having a great quarterback like Ben to throw to him, he may fall off. Just because of Darius Hayward-Bay's special teams ability. But maybe not. That's a good camp battle to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about the receivers in ad nauseum. So,
Yeah.
And so as far as the receivers and the tight end group, and I guess we'll throw Rosie Nixon there too because he's the fullback for sure.
Yeah.
But if you kind of combine the fullbacks and tight ends, 4 or 5 bodies usually there. The X-Man is an X factor. I mean, at times for me. See, this is the thing, and this is one of the things that one of our newest writers, Tommy Jaggi, had come on board here a few weeks ago, and he was talking about Tyler Matakevich within the last week or so, and his measurables, the reason why he was like a 7th-round draft choice, the same kind of train of thought here as Xavier Grimble. Not the most athletic guy. Ladarius Green, very athletic guy. Ryan Shazier, very athletic guy. When you put these things on these graphs and charts and grids and you start getting into stats, but there's still something to be said for somebody who has a high football IQ, and they just seem to have an instinct for playing the game. And at times, I saw things from Xavier Grimble that didn't look too much unlike what Ladarius Green was doing. The only difference was, with Ladarius Green, it was maybe a little bit more consistent. So I'm not going to put Grimble and Green necessarily on the same level here. I mean, I'm talking about getting smoked here. Now there's fire for sure. But I don't see, if you go back and look at the touchdown or two that Grimble had, they were very similar routes that looked like they were maybe designed with Green in mind, and Grimble was able to execute. So that's pretty much just where I'm trying to set that up. I do think maybe not as many 2 tight end sets as in the past, but it all depends on the development of each of these individuals. Now, speaking of development of individuals, should we even discuss the quarterback depth chart? I mean, we know it's Big Ben, and then there's some other guys.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's very locked. And in fact, the position groups that we have left, which is quarterback, running back, and the line, I think are basically really very static. I don't see a tremendous amount of competition there. Look, it's Ben, it's Landry, it's Dobbs. Do I think Dobbs is going to beat out Landry for the number 2 job? No, I don't. I don't think he's going to. Not now. I think give him a year in the system. Next season could be a different story. But not this year. You're not going to, unless, Josh Dobbs has a lot of talent that has not yet surfaced and really just kind of, you know how at some point in time, sometimes for a lot of athletes, all of a sudden stuff just comes together. Well, unless that moment happens for him during training camp, as he's taking snaps and he just starts to really shine heavily, he is not taking Landry's number 2 spot.
There's no way. And you know what? I'm just as excited. Dobbs was the only guy, and this is much because of Zach Celadonia, one of our guys here at Steel City Underground, convincing and twisting my arm, and he made me a believer of Josh Dobbs, because we hate pretty much everybody that was drafted that plays the quarterback position, at least for what it would have taken to get some of the players like Patrick Mahomes, for example. It's not necessarily that I hate. I don't even like using the word hate, but I would not have liked that to have been a priority for the Steelers in the draft for what it took the Chiefs in order to move up and select Mahomes. So when you're talking about Josh Dobbs and you're talking about a mid-round pick and where they took him, I'm completely comfortable with it. I'm actually as excited to see Dobbs play as I was, and I'm going to catch it. I'm telling you, I've got the target on my back. Excited to see Landry Jones play when the Steelers took him several years ago. And I'm still excited to see Landry do some things maybe with a few of the ones out there in the preseason. And I'm already setting myself up, the expectation being that Dobbs is going to look the same way Landry did about 4 years ago. He's going to be a deer in headlights. The game's going to be a little fast. Some of these teams now, the Steelers now are a little bit different than when Landry came in. When Landry came in, they didn't have the same type of depth on many of these positions. So I think Dobbs may look a little bit better because he's going to have some better receivers to throw to, and he's going to have some better linemen that are going to be in there at that point maybe during the game. And that's also going to translate versus the teams they're playing that I think, they're always playing the Panthers, and the Panthers had just an obscene amount of defensive line depth that one year, and they were all over Landry's stuff, you know what I mean? So they were really hurrying him, and he looked like, like a scared child. I hate to say it. I love you, Landry, and most people know that. But he looked bad, and I was already lighting my torch, and the pitchfork was in the other hand, and then he turned it around. So I think we're going to see something very similar. Josh Dobbs, literal rocket scientist. I don't think there's anything he's not going to be able to handle as far as the playbook, as far as his football acumen. But as far as putting that onto the field, it's going to take some time. A lot of people are going to be upset. It's going to be the same people wanting to see Zach Mettenberger in there for no reason other than we want somebody other than Landry Jones. This year's not the year.
No, it's not going to happen. I agree with you. I think I am. Zach has not completely won me over yet. And by the way, Zach, I hate you, and you know why. But it's not true. I don't really hate Zach, but it's an inside joke. The thing is, I just still don't see Dobbs as anything other than Landry 2.0. I think he's going to be a backup quarterback, and Zach really wants me to think he has starter potential down the road. And again, I want to say this very clearly to everybody. Starter potential doesn't mean Hall of Fame starter. It means a guy who can start on occasion and win a couple games, hopefully, but isn't good enough to be a full-time starter. I'm not sure that's Josh Dobbs. That's not taking anything away from Josh. I hope I'm completely wrong and off base, and he turns into, the next great Steelers quarterback. I just don't see it. But we'll see. I think, first of all, it's still so early. He needs time to develop in the Steelers system. That's why I agree with you. It's not going to be this year. It may be next year, which is why Landry only signed a 2-year contract. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. We'll see. Unless you got something else about that, the next group is the running backs.
Are you sure I can't talk about quarterbacks some more?
Don't talk about Landry. I mean, we know the bromance is real. We know. But, the next group is running backs. And what else? What do we got to say other than who's going to be the number 3? Really, that's the only question. It's Le'Veon, and it's almost certainly James Conner. And then it's who? Toussaint or Niles Davis?
Martavius.
Yeah. I get Niles, and I think of the guitarist for Springsteen.
Yeah, I'm with you. We were talking about him being a blues singer, and it's like stuck ever since. We made that little bit of an inside joke, but you know what? And not to cut into what you're saying about the running backs, but just to put a little bit more nonsense aside. Bell hasn't been to OTAs. They're completely voluntary. I know the world's going to end now. There was a good discussion. I think it was Ed Bouchette was on maybe 93.7 The Fan, and he was talking with the hosts there about how Bell hasn't signed his tag yet, and it's. I don't know. I don't know what he's waiting for. It's like $12 million or whatever it is, and that's basically what they're saying. It doesn't make any sense other than if he puts his pen to paper, then he's required to show up for some of the workouts that he's required to show up for. So I don't know if there's much to put into that basket there. I would just think that, hey, you know what? He's not really holding out. I mean, this is like Antonio Brown holding out, right? He didn't show up for like one day because he was doing blah 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 whatever. And
it's crazy talk. There was a bunch of stuff about this was I think a higher end source, so to speak, saying, is it a holdout? Watch out, you got 2 guys who are holding out, Le'Veon and somebody else. Le'Veon is not holding out. First of all, OTAs, as you said, voluntary. And what is he really supposed to be doing now? He had groin surgery not that long ago. He's rehabbing. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing, more than likely. And that doesn't necessarily mean he needs to come play football in shorts, because he doesn't. He needs to rehab to make sure he's ready for training camp and for required dates. as far as the contract, I agree. If he doesn't sign it, he doesn't have to show up for stuff that he would have to be under contract for. But also, if he doesn't sign it, it could be because they're still trying to get a long-term deal done. And as soon as he signs that, there may be less impetus to get that deal done right now. Because if they can lock him up and not have to pay him $12 million next year and take that kind of a cap hit, that's not such a bad thing. If they can knock that number down to something more reasonable, why wouldn't they? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, here's your offer. We're going to put the franchise tag on you. Don't sign it until you absolutely have to because we want to work something out.
It's very much possible, and they could also extend and rip that up and everything else. I mean, you look at that mega deal Von Miller did last year. I mean, he was tagged, and then $100 million or something, highest paid at his position. So, but yeah, it's Bell for sure. He'll be there, and James Conner not really as hurt as some people speculate. You know what I mean? Just a small tweak. He's more than likely going to be the number 2 guy. And when we looked at some of the counts, the snap counts, and then there's Niles Davis, of course, not Niles Davis. And we looked at some of these snap counts, and let me tell you, it was not too pretty for like Fitzgerald Toussaint, who we think is going to have an uphill battle to make the roster. He's really competing with Niles Davis because Niles Davis is also a kick returner. So it's going to be between those two guys. But we're really talking about, I think Fitz had something like 20 carries, and I think he had like a game high was maybe eight plays he was in for, and that was against the Cleveland Browns when Bell was put on the bench and D'Angelo was healthy again. So even the few snaps that the third-string running back saw, this is the way we like to see it, by the way, because I still have nightmares of Ben Tate and Josh Harris trying to form some semblance. Hey, this is criticism, folks. I just want to point it out. Here's the alarms and the alerts. I should insert some sound effects here, but that just trying to have some resemblance of a running game in that Ravens playoff, wildcard playoff game several years ago. I have the same nightmares that everyone else has. So when you hear that James Conner, he tweaked something like this, you're already thinking, oh my God, Bell's sitting out, Conner's hurt. What are we going to do? It's going to be okay. It's June. It is the beginning of June. We still got months, 100 some days, or less than 100 days now until football officially begins. So no need to panic. No need to panic. We need to talk about what makes that running game tick. And this is pretty much a lock, like you said. I'm not even sure what we even say. It's going to be the usual crowd. We talked about Big Al, and he's still participating in OTAs without a contract, signing a waiver or whatever so he can. So it's a pretty stand-up thing to do for him. He realizes he still wants to be a starter in this league. Chris Hubbard was tendered. He's going to be a backup. B.J. Finney's going to back up at both guard positions and center. You no longer have Cody Wallace. So your starters, Alejandro Villanueva, Ramon Foster on the left side, Marquise Pouncey, the man in the middle, Dave DeCastro, your other Pro Bowl guy on the line next to Pouncey, and Marcus Gilbert as your right tackle.
Yeah, there's no question that's what's going to happen. And as we discussed in articles and on in the back rooms with Big Al, that fact that he signed a waiver to come and participate in OTAs because he's not under contract, which, by the way, Le'Veon would have had to sign that same waiver, and recovering from an injury wouldn't have made sense for him to do so. But Al signs his waiver so that he's protected and the team is protected in case he does get hurt. But it shows the kind of character he has. This is Al's payday. This is his probably the only contract he's going to get that is of size. And I understand the need to try and cash in on that because, the lifespan of these guys is not forever and he needs to take care of his family. But and it is a little disturbing to have had, I think it was either Ed Boucher or one of the other beat writers say that the two camps are way off in numbers. What Al's agent is asking for and what the Steelers are trying to offer is not close. But again, it's early. It's June. They have plenty of time to work something out. Al can't go anywhere. If he's going to play next year, it's for the Steelers. And while we don't want it to get into an ugly situation, we want it to all tie up nicely. That could be a lingering issue. But let's not forget we've got Gerald Hawkins there too. So I think that also helps them in that sense. You've got another young guy who could potentially come in. I don't want to forget to mention this because we came up with this idea, and we're going to try and incorporate it as a process for everybody for the video podcasts, which is we're going to create a Steelers mailbag account. And maybe not mailbag, but viewer mail. Let's call it viewer mail. I'll steal it from David Letterman. Back in the late show days, when Dave did viewer mail, what we want to do is we'll publish up a quick article on the site explaining the concept and a link to the email that we want you guys who listen, who read, who post comments to think about it. Ask us some questions. Look, I don't care if it's a stupid question. If your question is, why are you such an idiot? That's fine. Ask me that question. It may not get read in the viewer mail, but it might. You never know. I'm not adverse to a little self-mockery. And we'll take the stuff that comes in the Steelers viewer mail, so to speak, and we will create a video podcast where we go through your mail and we answer it. So it's just an idea we wanted to try out. We'll see how it takes off. Look for a quick intro article to that sometime probably next week.
Yeah, sometime within the coming week, we were doing a little bit of something called like a fan forum, and it's just not the same type of traction on Twitter. So what we'd like to do is just kind of collect all of your questions in one place. And for those of you who have the ability to comment, I know you could probably comment and send us some feedback as is. Tell us how you would like to let us know, because we still have the hotline. It's 203-900-4SCU. And for everyone that doesn't know how the numbers and letters operate on the phone, maybe you're not old school, you don't have the rotary like Brian still does. It's 203-900-4728, 4728. You can always, sometimes I actually answer the phone, which isn't good, but what we were doing is that it had the voicemail box, and I would play some of those questions on the air. And I know some people don't like hearing their own voice. I know I don't like hearing mine. I tolerate Brian's as well. So it's just one of those things where you could still text that number too, and that's great for questions. We're going to set up an email account in addition. It's just a special email account for your questions. We'll check that. We're going to put some of those on the air, and some of it ends up being redundant like we had last year, so it's maybe a first come first serve, or the best question ends up beating it out. So it's no real favoritism. Sometimes we just throw a dart at a board or flip a coin and figure out, well, you know what, we like Brian's question better than Joe's regarding the future of Le'Veon Bell and whether or not he's going to sign this thing, something of that nature. So if you do have some questions for us, we're going to open up an avenue for everyone to be able to ask those and have them answered here on the air. But speaking of on the air, we're going to be going off here in a few moments. I'd like to thank Brian once again. Thank you, buddy, for joining me. It's always fun.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And it's good to have the Top Gun team, Mav and Goose, back together for a podcast.
Yeah, just make sure no one kills you out there, okay?
Absolutely.
It's gonna be rough. I could already feel the eyes burning through the video and the ears steaming from listening to some of the things we said today. But like we said, it's early. It's not set in stone, folks. And of course, I'm ever the eternal optimist. Until next time, this is Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach. You're listening to the Steel City Underground Podcast. We like to call this the black and gold standard for your Pittsburgh Steelers coverage, and I hope you accept that as yours too. Until next time, be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.